there's this feeling in kingdom when you walk amongst kingdom circles that, when they have their vision, many have been given a vision for what the
Yeah.
end is going to look like for them, or they've been given a prophecy or a word. But there's this prevailing feeling that it's supposed to be bam,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
just there. But that's not how it works. And I want to go back to what we mentioned before you hit record. And in Genesis, the verse in the Bible where it says, in the cool of the day,
Yeah.
God is walking through the garden. And I used to think, why in the world is that verse there? It's like so randomly it's just weird in the
Right.
cool of the day.
Yeah.
The breeze is blowing. Like, why? But it speaks to the joy of God in the relationship that he was excited about with Adam and Eve. So
Mhm.
those words are there. It's storytelling. It's that, the authors knew what they were doing when they put that in there. So when you see weird stuff in the Bible, I usually like to focus on that because that means
Yeah.
that's where the meat is.
Right.
But so here's the thing. The Garden of Eden for Adam and Eve wasn't their end game. It
Right.
was their training ground,
Yes.
their journey, their
Yes.
relationship, because the mandate was that they would go do this, they
Hmm.
would repeat this in
Hmm.
the world.
Hmm.
So God was enjoying the relationship of the training. He wanted to train and teach them.
So
Like
good.
he wanted to do that.
Yes.
He wanted to do that. But what did they do? They
Hmm.
forsook that because they had the vision, they
Yeah.
got the game plan, and they wanted it now, and
Yeah.
they were deceived, and they reached with their own hand,
Yes.
took from the apple
Oh my gosh.
before their time. And guess what? That's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Hmm.
God had planned to give that to them eventually. How do we know
Right.
this? I'm
Yeah.
going to show you how we know this. The New
Okay.
Testament says the milk is righteousness. But what does it say the meat is?
Hmm.
The naked, listen, this is going to blow your mind. This is the big one. This is crazy. The meat that Paul said he wanted to give them, but he couldn't because they weren't ready. The meat is the naked discernment between good and evil.
Oh gosh. That's
And
amazing.
Prophet K
Yes.
goes into this because we don't operate under that system.
Right. Right.
Prophet K talks about you being in the chariot with the
Yes.
reins, the black
Right.
horse, the white horse, the
Yes.
plus, the minus, and you are outside of that and you govern that. So God was going to give Adam and Eve that,
Right.
but he wanted to do it through relationship. And so what I'm saying here is for those that are struggling and those that are waiting for this, is that embrace the relationship
Yeah.
part
Right.
because the vision and the prophecy,
Yeah.
he will deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
You won't have to reach with your own hand. If
Hmm.
you are concentrating on pursuing righteousness, and
Hmm.
this is the part we leave out of that verse,
Yeah.
seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added. Oops, you just missed the part. You missed and his righteousness. That's relationship, because that
Yes.
righteousness comes from his garment,
Exactly.
relating with him. And so jump back into that
My
with full
God.
veracity. And I
Yes.
promise you, enjoy that journey.
Yes.
I was given a prophecy. You wanted me to speak on it. So I was given a prophecy. We were given a prophecy, my wife and I, 5 years before
Hmm.
things just exploded off the map.
Yeah.
5 years.
Five.
The journey, every time in that journey, every time we reach with our own hand and we tried to do something outside of its time,
Hmm.
it failed.
Hmm.
Even though we were given the game plan, we were given the go out in the earth and do this. Like we
Right.
were already given it, like we
Yeah.
had it,
Yeah.
but we wanted it now.
Uh-huh.
It should happen now. It should be now. And that's just not how it works. The plan is there. He's
Hmm.
not, he's not just the one that gives you the desire. Remember, scripture says he is the doing of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. For
he is the
sure.
doing of it, the
Yes.
will and the way, the
Uh-huh.
will and the way. Hopefully that, I don't know if that answers what you want me to.
Oh gosh. And more. And
Yeah.
I've got like three more questions, but
Yeah. Go.
okay, no, you bear with me and you just cut me off
No,
at
go.
any
Go
time.
ahead.
Okay, so here you are talking about this process, because so many people want it, like flipping on a light switch, and the boom, the light comes on versus the dawning of the sun in the morning. Because, it really is about walking through a thing, walking through a process. And there's things that you're going to come up against that are in you that you've got to deal with. And I think about what you do and how it can be incredibly emotional. Like one, you want it to continue to go up, 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 right?
Yeah.
But can that realistically happen? Is that part of the process of an
Yeah.
efficient and an effective process?
Yep.
I mean, I think that there has to be some downs, and then how do we regulate? How do we,
I'm
yeah.
so
So,
glad you asked that
yeah,
question. So here it is. The gems, the gold, the onyx, the bdellium are those downs. And I'm going to show you how.
yeah,
So it's your perspective.
mm,
Our perspective is, or our old paradigm is, oh, this is bad. Oh, this is a bad thing. This is a hurdle. Look, I can't handle all these roadblocks. But the Son, the one who is redeemed, the one who is free, the one who is immortal,
yeah,
knows that every one of those things are gems. Why? Because
yeah,
they are the things now that are to construct you and build
yes,
you
yes,
and cause you to reach and step higher. So every time you see a hurdle, every time you see a hiccup, it is a gem. Look at it from now on as a gem. It
hmm
is the Garden of Eden
hmm
training ground.
so good.
Because what he wants to give you, the keys to the Ferrari, the keys
Right.
to the Lamborghini,
Yes.
the dream that he gave you, the vision
Right.
that he has for you, the kingdom that's waiting for you. Somebody had a dream, and it was a dream of God having these rooms in heaven, and they were full of gifts,
Yeah.
and they had your name on it.
Yeah.
And they're for you.
Yeah.
But because of a belief system or the belief system wasn't lined up, they were blocked.
Yeah.
And he wanted to give them to you. There's a stewardship, there's a relationship that unlocks these
hmm
things. And until you have these lows or these hurdles and you overcome them as a son. So
Yeah.
my thing right now is those don't go away.
Right.
Some people think, well, if I had $1 million, all of these would go away. That does not exist. That doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how great your business is. It doesn't matter how much realization of how close you get to the Father. These things will always exist, but your view of them changes.
Right.
Because now I smile when I see one, and I'm like,
Yes.
now they're opportunities. So that's what I
Right.
would tell you. Instead of viewing it as a roadblock, a landmine, they are opportunities.
Mm.
Because on the other side of that, the scripture says, to him that overcomes,
Yeah.
well, immortality is given. So what do you think that means? Like you must overcome. That means there's hurdles, there's hiccups,
Yeah.
there's road bumps. The
hmm
the the Prophet K. I know I have to refer to Prophet K because no one teaches this better, and he is the one to help you achieve all of these things because he can make it practical. But it's like he said. I remember him saying in the service he said immortality. People are preaching immortality. Do you know what you're asking for?
Right. Exactly.
As if it's just going to fall off a tree and bang, you're there. Like
Yes.
it is a journey. So you can either hate the journey
Right.
or enjoy it. And the only way to enjoy it
Exactly.
is to change your perspective on, and for me, it's an opportunity, not a hurdle. It's
Right.
an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do what? To demonstrate. Here it is. This is the big one.
Mhm.
Do you really trust him? Oops.
Right.
Because the only way everybody can trust him when everything's great.
Yeah.
You can say, when everything is good, relationship's good, you're not in debt. Everybody can say, yeah, I trust you.
Right.
That's not the test of trust.
hmm
The test of trust, the test of faith
hmm
is during and I'm going to say my word for it, opportunity.
Yes.
It's during an opportunity.
Right. You know what? And I love that because taking it back to what you do and what you're, brilliant. I mean, you're brilliant at a lot of things, but in this one particular area, when you do the down and it's an opportunity, I mean, that speaks volumes right there. That's going to speak volumes to that people group that does the trading and all of that. And so, but you know what? And when we're talking about the opportunity, because I see it that way as well, when something happens, and it looks like if we scandalize it, or if we polarize it and we look at it and we're like, oh my God, that's
Yes.
bad. Well,
That's the minus.
yes,
Remember, we operate outside of the plus and the minus.
yes,
The
yes,
moment you go, oh, and then you put the minus above your head and it rules you, you just
right.
put yourself back under the system of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You just did it.
So good. That is so good. And the thing is that for me, I like to look at it like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to experience a thing that maybe I've not experienced before. And now I'm able to take inventory as to how I'm going to assess that, or, how am I going to assess this and what am I going to do with it?
And what
And
you said right there at the beginning, how are you going to assess it? That is the key.
mhm,
Because if you assess it negatively,
yes.
here's the thing. If you assess it negatively, it affects your body.
Oh,
And then you can get sick. Stress. It
yeah.
releases the wrong types of stress and it creates a havoc in your
Yes.
body. But if you can assess it from
Yes.
a new paradigm,
Right. Right.
then these things that you thought were negative, they no longer can affect your body. They
Yeah.
no longer can create disease, cause sickness. It's
Yeah.
not the thing that causes it. Here it is. It's not the thing that causes it. It is your reaction or your paradigm or
Yeah.
your view,
For
your
sure.
perspective of the thing.
For sure. For sure. And with that, how, okay, so we can make our bodies sick. Well, we can also heal our bodies.
Boom.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. And depending on, okay, so I have a friend that went to the doctor, and so the one doctor over here is giving this report, the specialist doctor is giving this report, and it was a good report. And it's like, yes, we can latch on to that. Yes, I can latch on to the fact that, I'm gonna get, $1 million. And then over here, the next thing that happens is I have a bill that's $999,000, right? And so, but so then you do this up and you do this down. But the thing is that if you latch onto that down in a negative way, you're gonna spiral downward. And
100%.
so in this situation with this friend, now this other doctor's giving a negative report. And so what report are you gonna believe?
Right.
What are you going to
Yeah.
latch onto? What does the Lord say? What does the
Yes.
Lord say about that? And what am I believe? What is my vision for
Yes.
this? Where am I going with this? And
Yes.
so these ups and downs are going to come, what we can perceive as ups and downs that, come, but then what's the vision that we have? And this is one of the things that when I'm working with people on, their prayer requests or whatever, when they email me or text me or whatever, and they talk about all this mess and this garbage and this
Yeah.
and that, and it's like they want to sort through the mess, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
what's your vision? Where do you
Yeah.
want to go?
Yeah.
What are you really asking for prayer for? Where do
Yeah.
you want to go with this? And
Yes.
let's get your vision going. Write the vision down, make it plain. Let's
Yes.
get your vision going. And what are we believing for? So that brings science into it. The
Yes.
reticular activating system can bring the
Yes.
resources to you. You
Yes.
embed it in your nervous system,
Yes.
and now you're believing it. And
Jesus says, "Who do
much.
you say that I am?"
Right.
Who
Yeah.
do you say that I am?
Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about some medical report because when I was finishing up my military career, I had to have both of my knees rebuilt. Well, when I went in to the hospital to have my knees looked at, the two knee doc I'd already gotten my X-rays, but the two knee doctors came in to meet me the first time. They walked in the room. I'm sitting in a chair. They walked in the room. They looked at me and they looked at the paperwork and they started to walk out. And the last doctor turned around and goes, "Are you Dan Wheeler?" I was like, "Yep, that's me." He goes, "What?" He goes, "We thought you were 85 or 90 years old because you have the knees of a 90-year-old man." And
Wow.
so both of my knees were I had make a long story short, I had to have surgeries on both of my knees at different times to have them rebuilt. But even after the knee surgeries, they told me then and there, they said, by the time you're 50, by the way, I'm 50, by the time you're 50 now, by the time you're 50, you'll be in a wheelchair.
Oh my God.
This is what they told me.
Mhm.
But and this comes naturally for me because I'm naturally optimistic. I'm naturally, I use negative to create fire inside of me to create the opposite. That's just a lot of people are not. So it's not like,
Yeah.
there a lot of people aren't built that way.
Mhm.
There's a lot that aren't built that way. They receive negative and it's very negative.
Yeah.
I receive negative, and if it doesn't line up with who I am or what I believe, then I convert that into
Yeah.
fuel to
Yes.
create the opposite. Tell me what
Right.
I can't do, and I'm going
Yeah.
to do it. It made me a bad child to my parents, but it makes me, but in other ways, it benefits me, me in the long term. But
Yeah.
Jesus says, who do you,
Yeah.
because ultimately a preacher can preach, Prophet Kirby can say, we can read about it, but the real question is, and he asked each of us, who do you say that I am?
Right. Yeah.
Who do you say? And these are like the foundations of sonship. Like they're the foundations.
Yes, so good, so good. Now I want to stop and say something here. The prophet K that you refer to, for those of you guys that are watching, listening, whatever, Prophet K is Kirby de Lanerolle. Kirby and Fiona de Lanerolle founded WOWLife Church in Sri Lanka. It's amazing, you guys. The revelation, the level of revelation is just off the charts. And it just keeps going up and up and up. But there's so much to learn. There's
Yeah.
so much to take our Christianity to the next level.
Yep.
You got to get tapped into WOWLife Church and just start where you are, start where they're
Yeah.
at and just keep going, keep listening, because you're going to see a transformation happening in your mind and then in your body. I mean,
Yes.
it's known as a weight loss church too, right?
Yes.
A
Yes.
healing and a weight loss church. And I mean, the next it's going to be growing hair back. If you're bald
Yes.
and you want your hair
You,
back.
you cannot listen to, Prophet K and Prophet Fiona and not have a call to action. And that's what I
Yeah,
love about and it's every single lesson and message. It's something that you can touch. It's so tangible and
yeah,
touchable. And not these just verses that sound great.
right.
It's a call to action. Like you can engage in these teachings. So that for me, the mentorship and the guidance and the covering from
Yeah,
Prophet K and Prophet Fiona have just been life changing. Nothing short. That's why I'm always quoting them.
right.
Like I could quote every time, everything I say, I could like quote Prophet K and Fee for something, but yeah, it's just wonderful.
It is. It's absolutely amazing. And so if just in the description below, I'll put the links in there for, WOWLife Church and some of the different things that we offer. But and you touched on this, Dan, as far as the covering goes. There was a person that I was talking to recently, and she was sharing some of her struggles, and I said to her, because I was being led to ask her, who's your covering? And she's a pastor, okay? She's a pastor.
Yeah.
And I said, "Who's your covering?" And she said, "Well, my husband is." And I'm like, "Okay, well, yeah, of course, of course. Who's your husband's covering? Who's your covering together?" And then that's when it opened up. And she said to me, "Rose, my spiritual father has passed on. And,
Mm,
during COVID, blah, blah, blah." And so then I was like, no wonder she's taken some hits.
yeah.
And so, just like anytime, like in the business world, they'll say, if you're struggling with in this area, whatever, find a mentor, find somebody that's going to help walk you through and teach you some things and
Yes.
whatnot. Well, okay, so and in the spiritual realm, here's the thing is if you don't have a covering, if you don't have a church, if if you don't have a covering, I'm going to ask you to step into this and just taste it for a while. Just eat of this word and
Yeah.
taste it for a while. And you know what? If it tastes kind of funny to you at first, and you're offended by what you're, what you're hearing, guess what? That's probably coming for a good reason,
Yeah.
because there's some things that you need to tap into that need to be reconciled and that you need to
Yep.
think differently about. So don't stop, be
Yeah.
open-minded and keep listening. So
Yes.
anyway, so yeah, Dan, you want to speak to that?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. That, and you bring up a good point because, you know, ultimately, we want God to shine light in all of the darkness. Like we say that, but
Right.
that does mean allowing Him to expose things in our inside of us that where there still is darkness or there is dirt and things that maybe we've tucked away. And He wants all of you. So but what happens is when we get light on that or it comes
Yeah.
back up or it reaches up, we feel condemnation or judgment, or we feel, but that's not what God is trying to do. He's trying to redeem that or reconcile that.
Mm.
And so many times we when light is exposed on a dark area, we feel like, oh, the judgment. So we push it back down, or we try to hide
Right.
it again, or we try
Yeah.
but He wants to expose those because He wants to redeem them, and my wife would always say, why is God always cutting this out of me? And I feel like He's cutting this. And I
Yeah.
said, you asked for immortality, right? I, you
Yeah.
know you did that.
Yeah.
I said, He is trying to give that to you. So He's
Right.
look at these things as, oh my goodness, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Redeem this. Like,
Mhm.
yes, this. Let's reconcile that. Hey, what
Yeah.
else? What else? Let's
Right.
reconcile that. Like He wants to redeem, He wants to reconcile. And Prophet K talks about, we have the ability to forgive sins. And he talked about, the priesthood and being able to go to your cover or your priest and saying, hey, I need forgiveness in this. And we are like, well, that's Catholic, or that's
Right.
the but here's the thing.
Yeah.
Many people can't forgive themselves.
I know.
You
Yes,
you know it says in the Bible that God forgives you, but many people are holding on to something because they can't forgive themselves.
I
Like
know.
they can't. And so that is still there. Even though they know a thing, because Bible says it, they still aren't, and Prophet K has several messages on this. They still aren't, they don't have the complete release
Right.
because either they still feel condemnation, they feel judgment, even though they've asked God 100 times.
Right.
Like, even though they've begged God for forgiveness 100 times and they know His forgiveness is there, it's still there. And so sometimes, communicating that to someone else, the priest, your cover,
Right.
and having someone just put their hands on your shoulders and
Mhm.
saying, I forgive you.
Right.
You are forgiven. Like you need to hear that from an
Yes.
individual, and it changes you. Like it's just so dynamic. It's just incredible. Like it's changed
And
a
your
lot of my
body.
paradigms, a lot of the way I used to
Yes.
think. But yeah, I
And
mean,
and think about that unforgiveness towards yourself and what that does to your body physically. It wreaks havoc.
yes,
It wreaks havoc on your body
yes,
and your
yes.
longevity.
Even though
Right.
you hit it, you're like, it's
Right.
there. Like it's
It's
hidden, but
there. It's there. It's working underneath the surface,
yeah,
behind the scenes, underneath
yep,
the surface until it starts to come up. And then you're like, whoa, what is that?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
exactly that.
Oh my
Exactly
gosh.
that.
I could go on and on, Dan. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for this
Wonderful.
conversation. Do you have
Yes.
any last things that you want to add?
No, this was wonderful. I loved it, and I'm available. So you just say when, you say whenever you want to get
Round
on chats
two?
or
We're
calls.
gonna do round two sometime.
Yes, 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 for sure.